November 29th, 2022, Buckingham Palace. Queen Camilla hosted a grand reception. Right in the middle of the event, Lady Susan Hussey was forced to resign following a controversial conversation. She is Prince William's godmother, the most powerful courtier of the dynasty. Instead of remaining silent to appease public opinion, William, who was all the way in Boston, immediately issued a steely statement. This press release went completely against King Charles's desire for an amicable settlement, directly turning Camilla's event into a media disaster. Why did William publicly deal a blow to Camilla right when she had just taken power? Was this resignation the first step in the plan to purge the stepmother? April 17th, 2021. The atmosphere at Windsor Castle thickened with silence during the global pandemic. The burgundy-painted Bentley state limousine rolled slowly towards St. George's Chapel. Inside the car, Queen Elizabeth II sat alone, her face concealed behind a black mask, preparing to say her final farewell to Prince Philip. She was not accompanied by her sons or her eldest grandson. The only person permitted to sit beside her on that historic ride was Lady Susan Hussey. This petite woman with snow-white hair carried no royal bloodline, but had been the most solid fortress wall of the British royal family since 1960. For 6 decades, she stood behind the velvet curtains of Buckingham Palace, hand-wrote tens of thousands of letters on behalf of the Queen, instructed Princess Diana on how to step out of a carriage, and taught Meghan Markle the rules of curtsying. Hussey was not merely a lady-in-waiting, she was the living symbol of the old reign, the keeper of the deepest secrets of an entire dynasty. But that impregnable fortress wall collapsed completely on the afternoon of November 29th, 2022. Queen Camilla hosted a large-scale grand reception at the Buckingham Palace Picture Gallery. Hundreds of guests, including Queen Rania of Jordan and Queen Matilda of Belgium, gathered to attend the event against gender-based violence. Among that noisy crowd was Ngozi Fulani, head of a charity supporting women of African descent. Lady Susan Hussey approached, used her hand to move Fulani's hair to clearly see the name tag pinned to her chest, and began to repeatedly interrogate with a single question about what part of Africa Fulani really came from. The several-minute-long conversation created a suffocating atmosphere. That very evening, Fulani posted the entire dialogue on social media. A storm of criticism erupted fiercely. Just a few hours later, the palace officially announced Lady Susan Hussey's resignation, ending 62 years of dedication with a racist label. To understand why the resignation of an 83-year-old woman shook the monarchical system, you need to clearly grasp the personnel operation mechanism of the British royal apparatus. Imagine Buckingham Palace as a giant multinational technology corporation. When the old CEO passes away, the new chairman takes over and wants to bring his entire private team onto the board of directors. But the core programmers from the old CEO's time are still sitting there, holding all the server passwords and the most critical data flows. In the palace, those holding the passwords were the ladies-in-waiting, the Queen's most trusted courtiers. They did not work for monthly salary checks, they worked for absolute loyalty and the privileges of high-level access to power. They were the ones scheduling the daily itinerary, reading personal correspondence, deciding who was allowed into the Queen's drawing room and who was sidelined out in the corridor. Whoever controls this team of courtiers controls the information flow of an entire reign. Replacing them is no different than changing the palace's entire operating system. As soon as Queen Elizabeth II passed away and Camilla ascended to the throne of Queen Consort, she immediately smashed this mechanism. Camilla completely erased the traditional ladies-in-waiting title. Instead, she established a new group named Queen's Companions, consisting of her 6 closest friends from before stepping into the royal family. This was not merely an administrative title change. This was a fierce transfer of power. It completely stripped away the old conservative faction's ability to control information, to place it into the hands of those absolutely loyal to Camilla. Lady Susan Hussey was the largest, most solid power remnant left of the old system, Her presence at the event hosted by Camilla that day was inherently a historically transitional arrangement. But when the incident broke out, instead of using the palace's massive media apparatus to shield a courtier of 62 years of dedication, the new system chose to let go immediately. The downfall of Hussey was a clear testament showing that the royal family's defense mechanism had changed masters, erasing the final barrier preventing Camilla from establishing an exclusive personnel apparatus around the throne. While the public was engrossed in arguing about racism on newspaper pages, the secure phone lines inside the royal family were operating at full capacity, with 3 covert actions reshaping the balance of power. The first covert action took place at King Charles III's office at Clarence House at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on November 29th. Upon receiving the emergency report about Ngozi Fulani's post spreading virally, Charles's group of senior advisors immediately met to draft a soft handling plan. They outlined a plan to contact Fulani privately for a discreet apology, while simultaneously arranging for Lady Susan Hussey to temporarily step back for a while, ceasing participation in public events until public opinion settled down. King Charles did not want to humiliate his mother's closest friend, while simultaneously not wanting to cast a dark shadow over his wife's important event right in the first months he had just taken over the throne. The second covert action took place over 5,000 kilometers away from London, in a secure meeting room inside a luxury hotel in the city of Boston, USA. Prince William and Princess Catherine had just taken a flight to attend the Earthshot Prize ceremony, an environmental event of international stature. As soon as he received the situation's summary, William immediately dismissed all of his father's efforts for an amicable settlement. Early on the morning of November 30th, the Kensington Palace media team arbitrarily issued a steely statement directly to the American and British press. The William faction's spokesperson's declaration was extremely razor-sharp. Racism has no place in our society. These comments were unacceptable. Through this bypassing action, William personally determined his godmother's fate, forcing her to resign immediately and pushing Buckingham Palace into a fait accompli. The third covert action took place right in the administrative area of Buckingham Palace. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by William's declaration, Queen Camilla's office immediately accelerated the personnel blood transfusion process. Just days after Hussey packed her belongings to leave, the 6 women belonging to Camilla's Queen's Companions group were officially issued highest-level security clearance badges, allowing them comprehensive access to the palace's private working areas. They quickly occupied the old working rooms of the Queen's faction, took over the communication lines with the outside, and officially became the new fortress wall surrounding the Queen consort. Camilla had cleverly turned an opponent's media crisis into a golden opportunity to clean up the final power remnants of the old reign. The detail that completely upends how we view this incident lies not in the content of the conversation between Hussey and Fulani, but in the timing Prince William launched his media attack from Boston. The event at the Buckingham Picture Gallery was originally elaborately designed by Queen Camilla's office to be her biggest shining moment since wearing the new crown. It was a banquet gathering the most powerful women in the world. Camilla wanted to use this event to shape her personal legacy, shaking off completely the third-person label and asserting the status of a compassionate queen consort, fighting for women's rights. However, Prince William launching an intercontinental media dagger by strongly condemning his own godmother sucked away all the attention of the global press. The next morning, the front pages of all major newspapers in Britain did not print pictures of Queen Camilla speaking full of confidence. They only printed pictures of Prince William, Kensington Palace's tough declaration, and the shocking downfall of Lady Susan Hussey. Camilla's entire multi-million-pound PR effort was wiped out by just a few-line press release. William was not merely protecting the modern image of the royal family against the issue of racism. He was using the very personnel trouble right within the event hosted by his stepmother to prove that Camilla completely lacked the capacity to control the palace. William turned this communication mishap into a covert indictment, exposing the looseness in the operations of the Queen Consort's faction. Why did a prince who always emphasized loyalty to the older generation like William decide to act ruthlessly, immediately sacrificing his 83-year-old godmother to deal a blow of power to his stepmother? Prince William wanted an absolute boundary of power. He wanted to immediately extinguish all efforts to establish a personnel system bearing the heavy personal imprint of Queen Camilla. Simultaneously, he set the goal of protecting the honour of the loyal courtiers belonging to the old reign. Those were the people who had stood beside Queen Elizabeth II, the people who had silently supported Princess Diana during her worst days. They were also the people who had cared for him since he was a little boy. William did not accept these living legacies being sidelined just because the palace had just changed masters. Protecting them meant protecting his own network of influence against the rise of the new faction. The first action proving this independent ambition took place right after the Queen's funeral in September 2022. William summoned his private secretary and ordered the maintenance of Kensington Palace's entire operational structure. He refused all proposals to merge his communications department with King Charles's team at Buckingham Palace. He established a tough information barrier. Not a single plan, not a single speech draft of William's was allowed to be sent to Buckingham for prior approval. His office controlled its private funding source from the Duchy of Cornwall, self-recruited, highly specialised personnel. William built a private fortress of power for himself, completely separated from his stepmother's sphere of influence. The second action took place in early November 2022. William decided to undertake his first foreign diplomatic tour in his capacity as Prince of Wales. He chose the city of Boston, USA, as the destination for the Earthshot Global Environmental Award ceremony. His team created their own itinerary, chartered commercial flights themselves, and contacted local political officials from the governor to the mayor themselves. He deliberately chose the timing of the trip to coincide precisely with the week Camilla hosted the biggest reception event of the year in London. William wanted to create a sharply contrasting image. While his stepmother hosted parties inside ancient walls, he strode on the international stage like a true leader, attracting the attention of the global press. The deep reason pushing William to this toughness lay in the indelible memories of his mother. He had witnessed Princess Diana being isolated by the palace system and pushed to the margins of society. He clearly understood the ruthlessness of those holding personnel allocation power. Lady Susan Hussey was not merely a salaried employee. She was William's godmother. She was the one who hugged him during his grandfather's funeral. Protecting the standing for people like Hussey was not just a matter of repaying a debt of gratitude. It was William's way of asserting he would never let history repeat itself. He was the direct heir. He needed to prove to all palace staff that loyalty to Diana's family would always be rewarded, and no Queen Consort could arbitrarily purge his network. Queen Camilla wanted to sweep away the judging eyes inside the palace. She wanted to establish absolute control over the information flow and harem activities. Throughout nearly 2 decades as the Prince of Wales's wife, Camilla always had to live under the shadow of Queen Elizabeth II and the king. Conservative courtiers. The older women belonging to Lady Susan Hussey's generation always looked at Camilla with probing eyes. They held all privileges of proximity to the king. They knew well who came to visit, who called, what documents were placed on the desk. Camilla wanted to completely smash that old structure. She wanted the people standing beside her to be those loyal to her specifically, not loyal to the Windsor family's generic crown. The first action to execute this goal took place just weeks after King Charles ascended the throne. Camilla summoned the head of the Human Resources Department of Buckingham Palace. She issued an unprecedented directive. The title Ladies in Waiting, Ladies Waiting to Serve, existing for centuries, was completely erased from the accounting books. Camilla manually crossed out the names of her mother-in-law's longtime courtiers. Instead, she created a new title named Queen's Companions. This list consisted of exactly 6 people. They were all her closest friends, those who had gone through the worst period of media smearing with her in the early 2000s. She brought them into the palace, issued them access badges to restricted areas, turning them into living shields to protect herself. The second action took place in mid-November 2022. Camilla began acquiring symbolic diplomatic events to consolidate her status. She decided to host a grand reception at the Palace Picture Gallery to launch the campaign against gender-based violence. She manually approved the list of 300 powerful guests from all over the world. She did not invite Prince William or Princess Catherine to participate as co-hosts. Camilla wanted this to be her own solo stage. She wanted to show the London elite that she was currently the most powerful woman in the kingdom. She had the ability to gather international queens and politicians without relying on the reputation or support of the younger generation. Camilla's goal crashed extremely hard into William's interests. When Camilla brought close friends in to replace the old courtiers, she indirectly cut off all information octopus tentacles William used to monitor the situation inside Buckingham Palace. Lady Susan Hussey was demoted to Lady of the Household, only tasked with minor duties without a decisive voice. The appearance of the new team directly threatened the successor's supervisory power. The 2 offices began to fall into a state of mutual suspicion. William needed to keep the old people to maintain the balance of power. Camilla wanted to push them out into the street to clean up her living space. Both only waited for a spark to incinerate the other's patience. The moment of direct collision broke out on the evening of November 29, 2022. The collision space was not a closed meeting room, but global social media. The incident between Lady Susan Hussey and activist Ngozi Fulani broke out right in the middle of the Buckingham Palace Picture Gallery. When the sensitive conversation was leaked onto Twitter, the reaction systems of the 2 powerful offices immediately went in 2 completely opposite directions. At Buckingham Palace, Queen Camilla was enjoying the success of the party. Upon receiving the report about Hussey's media crisis, Camilla's office chose to stand idly by with crossed arms. Not a single defensive statement was broadcast. No staff member of the Queen Consort's faction stepped out to explain the context. They left the 83-year-old lady to face the wave of public outrage alone. This silence was a calculated move. Camilla borrowed the hand of public pressure to completely remove the biggest thorn belonging to the old conservative faction, without needing to issue a dismissal order herself. At the same time, the telephone rang loudly at Kensington Palace's temporary office inside the Four Seasons Hotel in Boston. It was afternoon in America at this time. Prince William had just finished a meeting with the city mayor. His communications secretary pushed the iPad onto the desk, displaying the news feeds erupting from London. William skimmed through the reports. He instantly recognized the abnormal silence from his father and stepmother. King Charles wanted to wait. Camilla wanted Hussey to sink herself. No one stepped up to resolve it definitively. William stood up, walked to the window, looking down at the Boston streets. He turned back to look at his team of advisors. He requested them to draft a press release immediately. The boy who once cowered behind Lady Susan Hussey's back in days of mourning had now become the one deciding her fate. The collision did not lie in quarrels. It lay in the way William decided to intervene directly in the event hosted by his own stepmother, stripping crisis control from the hands of those sitting at Buckingham. The morning of November 30th, 2022, Prince William made a ruthless and irreversible decision. He approved the broadcasting of a press release from his own spokesperson in America. The statement had no beating around the bush words. It struck straight at the nature of the matter. The spokesperson declared, "Racism has no place in our society." The next line officially confirmed Hussey's resignation, emphasizing that those comments were unacceptable. William did not call to notify King Charles beforehand. He did not send the draft to Queen Camilla's office for review. He launched the blow himself from 5,000 kilometers away. This decision changed the entire dynamic of power. First, it forced Lady Susan Hussey to leave immediately, cutting off all hopes of internal settlement by King Charles. Second, it salvaged the image of the monarchy during a crucial diplomatic tour in America. William sacrificed his godmother to prove his own principle of zero tolerance. But the biggest consequence fell upon Queen Camilla. William's declaration hijacked her media forum completely. All achievements regarding the anti-gender-based violence event were wiped clean from the front pages. Instead of being praised, Camilla's team was exposed as loose managers, letting an incident happen right in their own house and having to wait for the Prince of Wales to resolve it for them. William dealt a staggering slap to his stepmother's leadership capability right when she had just tasted power. This self-speaking decision completely broke the unspoken agreement regarding unifying messages between the offices. What cruel, retaliatory blows would it draw in the following months as Camilla realized her stepson wanted to choke off her power? The downfall of Lady Susan Hussey took place with a speed so ruthless and cold that even the longest-serving staff members at Buckingham Palace had to shudder. Right on the morning of November 30th, 2022, as print newspapers in London began to report on Prince William's steely statement from America, Queen Camilla's office immediately activated a comprehensive isolation process. Instead of offering an explanation or dispatching a representative to support the 83-year-old courtier facing a crisis, Camilla's faction chose to slam all communication doors shut. Hussey's high-level security badge was disabled right on the palace's electronic system. Access rights to internal archival documents were completely cut off. She had to pack her personal belongings in the working room familiar to her for 6 decades by herself and leave via a side exit meant for logistics staff, avoiding dozens of camera lenses ambushing outside the main gate. Camilla remained completely silent, continuing to attend her personal schedules as if the woman who had just been torn apart by public opinion had never existed in her space of power. However, the triumphant silence of the Queen Consort's faction did not last long before the incredibly tricky second counterattack blow from Prince William. William understood clearly that if he let Camilla uproot the entire network of old courtiers loyal to the Queen, he would lose the most important eyes and ears right inside the King's drawing room. Instead of continuing to argue in the press, William silently used the absolute influence of the successor to directly intervene in his stepmother's core personnel list. Just weeks after Hussey left, the palace announced the official list of 6 women assuming the Queen's Companions position of Camilla. Despite all purification efforts by the Queen Consort, the name Lady Catherine Brooke naturally appeared in a solemn position on this list. Lady Catherine Brooke was no stranger. She was the biological daughter of Lady Susan Hussey. Placing the daughter of the courtier who had just been forced to resign into working closely with Camilla was a personnel move carrying extremely profound, intimidating significance from William's faction. Every morning, when Camilla stepped into the office to set the daily schedule, the woman, directly arranging papers and listening to her directives, carried the blood of the very victim she had just abandoned. Catherine Brooke became a living surveillance camera, a permanent reminder of the power that had never died out of the old system. Camilla was forced to force a smile and accept this arrangement because she could find no reason to refuse a lady with a perfect background, who was additionally covertly backed behind the scenes by the Prince of Wales himself. The appearance of Catherine Brooke punctured the personal fortress wall that Camilla had just painstakingly built, pushing the dynamic into a suffocating state of covert confrontation. Realizing that the rift between William's Kensington Palace office and Camilla's office was threatening to ruin the image of the entire dynasty right on the threshold of the first Christmas without the Queen, King Charles III was forced to intervene to find a way to patch the situation. In mid-December 2022, the palace launched a classic media move, a forced reconciliation. The King's senior officials secretly contacted Ngozi Fulani's charity organisation, arranging a face-to-face meeting between her and Lady Susan Hussey right in a luxury reception room inside Buckingham Palace. There were no live television cameras, no presence of the independent press. The entire event was strictly controlled by the palace's internal photography department. The photos released later showed an incredibly warm scene. Lady Susan Hussey and Ngozi Fulani sat opposite each other, smiling and exchanging handshakes full of goodwill. The palace issued a lengthy press release describing the meeting as filled with warmth and understanding, while simultaneously affirming Ngozi Fulani had accepted the former courtier's apology and wished public opinion to cease attacking her. On the surface, this seemed like a perfect victory in terms of public relations, a happy ending to a racism scandal. The public felt satisfied because the royal family knew how to admit fault and correct mistakes in a civilized, timely manner. But the most unexpected detail lay not in the smiles in the photos, but in the complete absence of Queen Camilla in this entire settlement campaign. Although the incident originated from the very event hosted by Camilla, King Charles and the William faction swept her office away from every stage of organising the reconciliation meeting. They did not want Camilla to snatch the credit for appeasing public opinion, nor allow her to use this event to polish her personal name. More importantly, through forcing Fulani to publicly accept the apology, William's faction officially washed away the moral stain for Lady Susan Hussey. This reconciliation was, in reality, not to comfort the victim, but a sophisticated legal whitewashing process, creating a safe, protective layer to pave the way for this powerful former courtier to legitimately return to the centre of the dynasty on a day not far away. Camilla stood watching the script unfold without being able to intervene, realizing that the administrative privileges of a queen consort were completely powerless before the synchronized coordination of the network of interests that had taken root for centuries. The peak of the tension exploded on a morning in March 2023, just 3 short months after Lady Susan Hussey was forced by public opinion to resign in humiliation. Despite the erasing efforts of the Camilla faction, the car bearing the royal standard once again pulled to a halt before the chapel gate during an official memorial event. The door opened and Lady Susan Hussey stepped down in a solemn black coat attire. She did not appear in the capacity of a private guest or a normal ceremony attendee. Official palace documents noted clearly she was present that day to represent Princess Anne, the second most powerful woman of the dynasty and the closest ally of Prince William. She smiled, walking amidst the security fences, proceeding into the area reserved for senior members, restoring her position of power right before dozens of camera lenses. This return was the most direct and ruthless slap, striking straight into the honour of Queen Camilla. It broadcast a razor-sharp message to all staff in the system that Camilla can host a party, but she does not have the right to decide the survival of those belonging to true Windsor blood. William and Princess Anne brazenly bringing Hussey back to work publicly was a trampling upon the stepmother's personnel reform efforts. They proved to the public that all purging efforts by the Queen Consort's faction were merely of a temporary, superficial nature, and true power still rested securely in the hands of the succeeding generation. Camilla could not voice opposition to Princess Anne's arrangement, nor request the king to fire his mother's close friend one more time. She was completely locked in a battle array where her opponents held far too many key cards. This event tore open the warm family cover that King Charles always tried to maintain. Investigative royal journalists like Christopher Anderson and Tom Bower began publishing a series of analyses in major newspapers, bluntly exposing the icy relationship between the two ends of the battle line. Experts asserted that Prince William currently is only tolerating the presence of his stepmother to save face for his father in his twilight years, and does not hold any personal respect for her at all. William is no longer a child needing protection. He is operating his own shadow court right inside Kensington Palace, patiently accumulating power and waiting for the ripe moment. The moment William and Camilla stand together on the Buckingham Palace balcony to wave to the people is now merely a perfect diplomatic play, concealing the daggers pointing straight at each other in the shadowed corridors. When King Charles III passes away and the crown is officially placed on the head of Prince William, how ruthlessly will the fate of the woman who once made Princess Diana shed tears be determined? Queen Camilla currently still wears the most prestigious crown in Britain, but her space of power is being suffocatingly narrowed. Inside Buckingham Palace, her Queen's Companions group now has to work under the strict surveillance of a new personnel system directly influenced by the successor faction. Every document Camilla signs, every event she creates a guest list for, must go through the filter of people like Lady Catherine Brooke. She no longer has the ability to arbitrarily remove any courtier belonging to the old reign, and must accept sharing the palace space with figures who once publicly disdained her. Camilla's power currently only exists on newspaper pages publishing ceremonial news, completely empty in terms of core administrative control. On the other side, Prince William has completed establishing an absolute protective perimeter around the future throne. From his Kensington Palace office, he holds covert veto power over all senior personnel appointments at royal estates. William does not fire Camilla's people with loud documents. He uses the massive budget from the Duchy of Cornwall to build a new management team, slowly draining his stepmother's self-determination rights in charity and real estate restoration projects. King Charles III currently has to allocate time for medical treatment and constitutional duties, no longer having enough strength to act as a mediator between his wife and eldest son, leaving the two powerful offices to define territorial boundaries themselves. Princess Catherine also adjusted how she appears in public. She frequently uses the most powerful inherited jewelry pieces from the old queen in events where Camilla is present, a silent affirmation regarding the status of the true female master of the royal family. As for Lady Susan Hussey, after her symbolic comeback, she has retreated to live quietly in her private apartment in London. She does not need to appear frequently anymore because the restoration of her honour has fulfilled its mission as a steel shield for the entire network of old courtiers loyal to the old dynasty. The downfall and return of Lady Susan Hussey open up giant cracks in the power structure of the House of Windsor. From a political perspective, public opinion is forced to question the true fate of Queen Camilla at the time King Charles III passes away. Will Prince William push this stepmother into the status of a dowager queen with minimal authority, cutting off completely the stream of funding money and forcing her to retreat to the dull countryside? Or will he isolate her right in the heart of London, stripping all diplomatic privileges to retaliate for the traumas Princess Diana once had to bear in the past? From a moral perspective, this covert war exposes a ruthless truth about how the elite treat each other when interests are threatened. Camilla's silence when Lady Susan Hussey was pilloried by the public was a calculation to eliminate an opponent, but it became the evidence for her stepson to use as an excuse to strip away her power. Is William's revenge an act of reclaiming righteous justice for the older generation, or is it merely the abuse of personnel power to satisfy personal hostility? Can the public continue to place trust in a royal system that always preaches about compassion, while inside those ancient walls lies an uncompromising arena where women are continuously used as pawns for the power transfers of future kings? At the highest place of fame, forgiveness seems to be a non-existent concept, and what you do today, even if just standing idly by watching others be humiliated, will surely become the sentence for your husband's children to judge you tomorrow. Hit the subscribe button to the channel today to continue following fierce personnel upheavals, underground agreements, and ruthless power purges inside the most closed dynasties in the world.